Reading of Brendan Dassey Trial Transcript Day 2, beginning at page 21. This is a continuation of Mr. Kratz questioning of William Tyson of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department. All right, just go back for a moment about the concept of search teams on the 1st of March. That is after Mr. Dassey's statement was made after a search warrant was authorized. Was a search team put together for the trailer of Mr. Avery again? Yes, I was assigned with Deputy Rick Reamer and Investigator Wendy Baldwin. We were sent back into the trailer to execute that warrant. All right, move ahead just a couple of days to the 9th, Wednesday, the 9th of November. You were employed on that day? Yes. And could you tell the jury, please, what your duties were on the 9th of November? This is 2005. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm trying to think back. If I ask you a more specific question, could you please help you? Sure. Were you involved at all in this case in collecting what are called exemplars or standards? Yes. And could you tell us how you were involved in that process? On the 9th, I was directed by Agent Fossbender and Investigator Wiegert. Was told my responsibility would be to go to the Aurora Medical Clinic in Two Rivers. I was informed that search warrants were going to be executed on members of the Avery family and that they'd be brought to the Aurora Clinic where a physical examination would be done, DNA exemplars would be taken, and my responsibility was to document, photograph, and collect any of the exemplars that were taken by the medical professionals. Were one of the individuals brought to the Aurora Medical Facility Stephen Avery? Yes. Did you have occasion to participate in and document a physical examination of Mr. Avery on the 9th of November? Yes. And during that physical examination, did you note any specific injury or the remnants of any injury at that time? Yes. It was his middle finger on the right hand. He had a deep laceration. I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 89. Tell us what we're looking at, please. Yeah, that would be the finger, showing the cut to the finger with a scale for measurement purposes. This was a photograph that you took? Yes. Recognizing that you are not a medical professional, I assume you're not, correct? From what I know of you, Sergeant Tyson, but the observations that you made and the photograph that is a depiction of that injury that appear to be a significant or a deep cut to you? Yes. Later that week, in just general terms, could you describe for the jury what your responsibilities were at the Avery salvage property? At the end of the week, we were completing our searches, and my responsibilities were to assist where needed. I was also requested to videotape the entire property, inside the residences, the whole area, to show exactly how we were leaving the property and to give an idea of what this crime scene all entailed. The last series of inquiry I believe I have for you, Sergeant Tyson, is after a statement was received by Mr. Dassey. Attorney Fremgen. Objection, Judge. At this point, there's been no evidence of any statement in the record. The Court. Response. Attorney Kratz. I could ask him if he knows of the statement by Mr. Dassey. It isn't the statement itself. It's just is to establish what this writer did. It certainly isn't hearsay, Judge. The Court. Well, why don't you try to lay a foundation then for the question? Attorney Kratz. All right. Sergeant Tyson, have you been involved in this investigation, that is, the investigation which included Mr. Avery and Mr. Dassey throughout the entire process? Yes. Were you aware that Mr. Brendan Dassey provided a statement to law enforcement officials, specifically Investigator Wiegert and Special Agent Fossbender? Yes. Did you know the date on which that statement was given? I know it was at the end of February, maybe the 28th, March 1, in that area. Sometime thereafter, were you asked to attempt to obtain some evidence from an area of Teresa Halbach's SUV? Yes. Could you describe that process for the jury, please? Sure. Deputy Jeremy Hawkins is also an evidence technician within the department. He assisted in the processing of a lot of the evidence that we did collect. On April 3, we were requested to go to where we had stored Teresa's vehicle. Investigator Wiegert and Agent Fossbender had requested that we do DNA swabs of both door handles, interior and exterior, as well as the hood latch to the vehicle and the battery cables under the hood. Directing your attention to the hood latch, and now I'm going to have you look at exhibit number 90. Tell us what it is that we're looking at, please. This would be a photograph of the hood latch to Teresa's vehicle. And so a jury member, or all jury members, understand what is a hood latch. It secures the hood to the vehicle, locks it in. All right. On my vehicle, or at least on most vehicles, there's a release or a button on the inside of the vehicle. Are you familiar with those? Yes. But is there another safety feature or an additional latch that's usually on a hood? Yes, and that would be the hood latch. All right. Did you again personally swab or collect possible DNA material from Teresa Halbach's hood latch? Yes, I did. Would you describe for the jury that process, please? How was that done? Sure. When you swab for any type of DNA evidence, you have a cotton tip applicator, kind of like a big Q-tip. You have distilled water, and the tip is sterile as well, so you're taking it from a fresh package. You take your distilled water, you would, not touching the cotton tip applicator, but you would drop 2 or 3 drops of this water onto the cotton tip applicator. You then take that applicator and swab the area in which you were interested in. Could you point to the large screen, please, and tell the jury where it was that you swabbed? That is, what area of the hood latch was swabbed by this applicator? Sure, this area right in here. I'm going to have Mr. Wiegert show you what's been marked for identification as exhibit number 94. Because it contains biological material, I'm not going to have you open it, but I would ask you, if you're able to, identify exhibit number 94. Yes, it's got the evidence tag on that. I personally wrote out, and it states it contains the swab containing possible DNA evidence. From the hood latch of Teresa's vehicle. Attorney Kratz, if I could have just a moment, Judge. Judge, I would move the admission of exhibits, I think it's 79 through 94 at this time, and I have no further questions of Sergeant Tyson. Thank you. The court. Any objection, counsel? Attorney Fremgen, what was number 90? The court. Number 90 is a photo of a hood latch of the Halbach vehicle. Attorney Fremgen, no objection. The court. All right, they're received. Cross? Cross-examination by Attorney Fremgen. Officer, you indicated that you are currently in a position of like a supervisory role with the Sheriff's Department? That's correct. And you indicated that you had been trained back in 1984 as an evidence tech? 1994, correct. 1994? Yes. Okay, have you had any follow-up training or primers since 1994? Maybe in 1995, 96, 97, in the early stages, some updates. Photography, things like that. But no, most of my training now would consist of supervisory training. Between 1994 and now, was the majority of your duties or your responsibilities involving evidence tech or evidence collecting, or was it general police duties? The majority of my responsibilities are general police duties. If we have a crime that occurred in the county, I could be dispatched to that. You know, there's 5 officers in our department at that time that were evidence technicians. If I was on duty, or even if I was not on duty, I could get a call at my house to come out to process that scene. So if we had a crime, yeah, we would have to respond to it. Did this training consist of a couple of classes at the Fox Valley Tech, or like a week-long training somewhere? It was a week-long training class held by Mike Campbell. He was an officer to the Milwaukee Police Department. He put on the training. I think it was at Lakeshore Technical College, and I believe it was 1 full week. So something locally? Yes. Now, your first duty involved in this investigation was, my understanding, to secure the RAV4. Is that correct? Correct. Did you do any processing of any evidence at the scene of the RAV4? No, I did not. I don't want to minimize your role, but essentially you just stood watch of the vehicle? Correct. Initially I was, make sure nobody got near the vehicle, nobody touched the vehicle. Due to inclement weather, we had a storm that was approaching. Agent Fossbender was on location with, I think, other DCI officers, and we were taking measures to make sure that no evidence that was possibly on the exterior of the vehicle would be destroyed with the incoming storm. So they had gone and gotten a tarp and very carefully tried to protect the vehicle from the elements that were approaching, as there was a mist in the air. Rain was coming. So they were doing that type of stuff. Once your role as security or securing the vehicle was completed, were you involved in processing any of that scene? With the RAV4? Correct. No, I was not. So the next role or duty within this investigation would have been when you were assigned to a search team to search the trailer of Stephen Avery? There were a few things I did prior to the execution of the search warrant at Steve's trailer. We had canines on the property that were searching the area, so when the canine handler showed up, I directed officers to go with the canine officers that were there with their dogs, and documented times of arriving on scene, time they completed, who they were with, what areas they searched, things like that. You didn't just sit around, you're doing work. Yes. Okay, but your next specialized task would have been to assist in the search of the Stephen Avery trailer. That'd be correct. How many searches of that trailer were you involved in? One search that night. I was sent back in, I believe, on the 7th of November to get a serial number and a model number off of a computer. Technically, that would be a search, but that was our only responsibilities that day, was to get the serial number off the computer and the model number for Investigator Wiegert. Prior to entering the trailer, when you did the initial search, not the second one when you went through it to get some model numbers, you indicated that your role was essentially to oversee, watch, and take notes? Yes. Did you first go through, videotape, or photograph the entire residence to memorialize what it looked like prior to the scene, to the search? Yes. For example, Detective Remiker had a digital camera and Sergeant Colburn had a 35mm evidence camera. Both of them, before we even started anything, photographed the entire interior of the residence before any searching had begun. Now, you indicated this is kind of a small trailer? Yes. Would it be fair to say that it would be best in the small setting to have as few people in there? Yes. And do you think that you had too many? Not enough? Just enough searchers for the residence? I found it to be adequate. It was hard in certain areas because it was small and confined. But we were, in hallways, in rooms, and it was adequate, I would say. When they did the search, since you were, obviously, you indicated trying to monitor or take notes of each individual, other 3 individuals searching, basically go through it methodically, one room at a time, or did everyone just go off on their own and you tried to follow them around? Well, we started out in Steve's bedroom. After a period of time, like Lieutenant Link had told me, he said, I'm going to start just looking in the bathroom for anything obvious. So I relocated my position into the hallway. I could see Investigator Link. I could see Sergeant Colburn on this side of the bedroom. I could watch Lieutenant Link. He was in the bathroom, but it was confined to that area. Nobody was allowed to just wander about the residence, So there were times when they were in 2 different rooms, a bathroom and a bedroom. Yes, for instance. You commented that it's important to change the gloves as items are handled. Yes. Is it just any item or just items that have evidentiary value? We look at it, on scene. We're looking for major evidence, things like that. We're not going to touch one thing and then change gloves every single time we touch something. But if it's evidentiary in nature, we suspect it might be evidentiary in nature, yes. Is it possible for DNA to be transferred, though, from touching some items that might have DNA that maybe you didn't find to have evidentiary value and then touching something that you end up seizing? Sure. And that could have happened? You don't know that? In something specific? I'm just asking in general. Oh, sure. If you're not changing your gloves every time you touch something, that could happen? Right. Right. It's not something that you're looking at to be evidentiary. You move on to the next item, sure. But each time you found an important item, you would change your gloves? The officers would, yeah. I wasn't specifically handling the evidence that night. I'm sorry. I guess I meant colloquially with you. Yes. The other 3? Sure. Okay, now, and again, you're testifying about what some of the other officers found. One of the officers found the handcuffs, and I'm going to imagine that maybe didn't hear you say it, and the leg irons together in the bookshelf? Yes. Okay. Were they just lying on the bookshelf? I did not see the location inside the shelf. I was standing to the side. He pulled them out and was showing me what he was locating. I was documenting. So where exactly they were on top of each other or right next to each other? That I do not know. Let me ask you this. If you know the answer, why did you take the handcuffs and the leg irons? The deputies at that time thought it was potentially something that could be evidentiary. But you left the guns? The guns were left in the gun rack. You didn't think that guns might be evidentiary? We figured they probably would, but looking at the circumference of what we were supposed to do, they left them. When the bleach bottle now this was in a separate search, correct? Yes. When you found that bleach bottle, yes. Excuse me, did you, again, your role at that time was the same as before, to document and monitor? That warrant, I was more involved with the actual searching. Investigator Baldwin was more the one assigned to documenting and note-taking. So you would have been the one who actually physically collected the bleach bottle? I was not. Officer Reamer was the one who actually seized it. And again, you're wearing gloves. Yes. At this time, did you process that to determine if there were any fingerprints on it, or is that somebody else's job? That was also my responsibility at a later time. Deputy Hawkins and myself were assigned to the duties of processing what we had collected from the scene, so yes, that bottle was processed.